What's up guys, Conrad here with another video, and today I'd like to talk about what I refer to as the Sartorial Journey, something I believe that many fashion enthusiasts can resonate with. Now, the way I would define the Sartorial Journey is generally a very slow process of transformation in terms of improving one's overall image and aesthetic. Kind of like a journey to self-discovery, but discovering how to present your ideal self. Sure, it is by definition somewhat a materialistic pursuit, which is why I thought it would be fun to touch upon the more deeper and philosophical aspects of this endeavor. Yeah, even though this video is technically on the topic of style, it is also my style to make things deeper than they really need to be. So do clothes define the man? Some may believe this to be the case, but I don't think they wholly define a man's character, but they display elements of it. So in a sense, it defines the image or message that the man is portraying at that particular moment, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally. Like demonstrating good manners, which kind of makes sense. If a man is well disciplined in regards to his health, fitness, and his life overall, is probably going to be demonstrated by his dress sense, indicating tidiness, hygiene, self-respect, and a well thought out appearance. Do clothes define one's masculinity? Only if you take things to extremes, like wearing a skirt, for example. But anyway, let's say you're in good physical shape. That doesn't mean you can just, let yourself go in terms of your sartorial efforts. Don't go around wearing a bin bag because people think you look like a model. You might as well have everything else down to a T and become the full package. So let's say I wanted to make a strong first impression on a girl. It's probably better if I went with a blazer and a shirt rather than a hoodie and a puffer jacket. But what if I'm on my way to the gym? Obviously I'm not going to be wearing my smart casual attire. And so if I say hello to a lady, she just sees me as the guy in the puffer jacket and sports gear, possibly homeless, and not the sophisticated gentleman that I imagine myself to be. Oh, the horror. Each outfit serves its purpose for the appropriate time, and so it doesn't necessarily define me as a person. And perhaps in that particular situation, it isn't the perfect time in order to make that optimal first impression anyway, which is okay. Although it may be a little bit annoying because if I happen to be on my way to a job interview or a fancy event instead, then I probably would have made a better impression and would be more likely to get a date or a number from that particular interaction. It is what it is. But let's not worry too much about the details. Otherwise we would all be wearing suits all day, every day, like they did back in the day. Yeah, technically you could be wearing smart casual attire every day, but I guess it also depends on your vibe, the crew you roll with, and your environment. If you're in a blue-collar environment, then it just ain't gonna work. But the flip side is also true. You don't want to show up to a corporate event or political board meeting wearing a tracksuit or sports gear. I'm not sure I would recommend it. I mean, when it comes down to it, it really is about who is the man behind those stylish and elegant clothes that you see. Who is that man that you see in those glossy advertisements and social media? Well, technically, those guys are most likely models or actors who are being paid to promote a particular brand. But let's put the focus back on you. A normal guy going about his day watching this YouTube video. You're not expecting someone to take your photograph whilst you're ready to strike a pose. But at the very least, you consider yourself to be well dressed enough. The clothes in themselves can be a great conversation starter, but the question is beyond what you're wearing, whether you're a man of substance. Do conversations with you go beyond the materialistic? So when and how does this journey start exactly? Well, technically, as soon as you're born, I guess. You do not have the ability to really dress yourself. Your parents do that for you, or most likely your mother. And so you just wear whatever is assigned to you and you just go with the flow. I mean, you really think a toddler is going to complain that his onesie wasn't made in Italy? No. Just being alive, experiencing the world in itself is stimulating enough. At that age, you're obviously not going to have that much self-awareness or be so overly critical about your image. You really don't give a damn about what people think about you. When you get older, that starts to change, of course. But at that stage, you're just trying to figure out what even is this life, which in itself is probably a lifelong journey. But for now, all that matters is that the clothes keep you warm and comfortable. Basically, it's not your responsibility to be your own stylist at such a young age. Fast forward to your teens and early 20s. You're now starting to adopt your own look and becoming a bit more intentional with what you wear. You're only beginning to define your identity, or at least what you feel your identity is at that given time. Because rest assured, to the younger guys, that this is still just the early stages of discovering yourself. So no doubt there'll be multiple transformations and changes after this stage. You're becoming more self-aware, but you're not all the way there yet. So you have more agency, but you're still a bit of a novice, so you find yourself making some questionable fashion choices. So you'll most likely refer to what's comfortable, convenient, and easy to buy. You'll probably opt for something rather colourful, oversized t-shirts, and perhaps baggy, ripped jeans. Whatever is currently popular and trending, well, that's most likely the style you'll try to emulate. Of course, this is just going off stereotype. You're still in that super anxious adolescent stage where everything feels hyper chaotic, exciting, dramatic, all those things. A lot of your peers and perhaps yourself will go through some kind of rebellious phase, going against society, what society deems as proper or formal. So if you're a grown-up, which I'm just going to assume you are, you may look at images back at your younger self from your old school social media accounts and just cringe and think, what the hell did I think I was going for? Swiftly moving along mid to late 20s, you obviously gotta have the leather jacket, tight white t-shirt, chains, wrist bracelets, ripped jeans, boots. You're wearing all this stuff to make a bit of a statement. I'm a rebel. I'm that, wannabe bad boy rock star. So I suppose at this stage, you're really feeling yourself. You're trying to be sexy as fuck. And a lot of the time, the leather jacket isn't even real leather. You spend every weekend at the club, drinking, trying to get girls who already, met a dozen guys that night who probably dress exactly like you. What a great time you're having. Moving on from that, approaching 30. You're now an adult. I mean, yeah, technically you're an adult earlier than that, but now you're definitely starting to feel like one. You enter the professional workforce and integrate into modern society. Perhaps you decide to conform for various reasons, then you start to question, alright, who am I really? And how do I want to present myself to the world? What's my image going to be long term? I mean, do I really want to maintain the hipster, rock star, laid back look into my mid-30s and 40s? I mean, you could, but I guess that wasn't really going to be the case for me. I wanted to stay timeless. So I'd get the appropriate garments now so that I wouldn't have to constantly update my wardrobe in the future due to ever-changing fashion trends. So as you progress through this journey, you strive to demonstrate the best possible version of that. many of you will start becoming professionals and perhaps need to adapt to the more corporate settings. So you're not exactly going to wear a hoodie or baggy jeans to work, unless you're at a super chilled startup or a more liberal creative industry. More low-key vibes, shall we say. But generally, you want to be more attractive, right? Maybe you're not as handsome in the traditional sense, but with the right drip, you could elevate yourself into a fashion icon status. Yeah, I know people nowadays say things like, to be attractive, you need to have the perfect facial symmetry and be 6'5", and if you tick all those boxes, then you could go ahead and dress poorly because your genetics will win in the end. So I understand that side of the argument. However, we are playing a bit of a different game. You want to elevate where you're already at. So let's say you're subjectively a 2 out of 10. Perhaps you're a little bit older, but you're a highly respected fashion designer. Suddenly, you're an extremely sexy individual. So anyway, we get to a point where we start taking inspiration from well-dressed movie stars or characters from Guy Ritchie movies, or classic older films. James Bond is a great example, of course. Will you have the same lifestyle and the same results with women as Bond? Debatable. But brands that are associated with Bond are very privileged because they know generations of fans will want to buy from them. Things such as clothing or accessories. So many things, just to replicate the aesthetic at least. So you could have a similar look to Bond, but do have the same charisma. So of course you got to work on yourself as well, not just on your clothing. Yeah, not every outfit would look good today, but for the most part, Bond's wardrobe is pretty versatile and classic. Generally more grown up and mature. So it's a convenient template to work from. So you can still adapt to the old money look or style without having to actually come from old money. No need to break the bank. But dressing like this doesn't necessarily mean you're trying to appear like you have wealth or trying to break into a specific social class. But there could be elements of that. It could be easy to fall into the attitude of elitism or snobbery as soon as you dress like someone who comes from money. All I would say is let the clothes accentuate who you really are, and hopefully you're a half decent human being. Perhaps you may even feel a level of imposter syndrome in certain places where your image may not actually reflect how you feel inside or your current economic standing, shall we say. Some people like to make their clothes a big part of their identity, and in a sense make it something that defines their personality. And be that guy, who has to drink their espresso in a classy French cafe, or have a whiskey, and smoke a cigar, classic shave with the best cologne, and get their shoes shined at the Burlington Arcade. Try to match the ultra elegant, sophisticated gentleman aesthetic. Also making the effort to become ultra refined with communication and manners. Nothing against that at all. You can do all that. But the question is whether it is actually congruent with your personality. I don't think you need to go that far, to be honest, unless that's the lifestyle you have been raised with, or you want to make a true 180 and want to fit more in with aristocracy. Perhaps it might help you to level up in regards to your career or networking. But it's also nice to develop a taste for luxury, whether it be regarding travel, craftsmanship and fine dining. Although you can fall into a bit of a rabbit hole. In my case, I feel that I reached a certain threshold where it's like, okay, I have refined myself to the degree in which feels natural to me. I'm not going to walk around with a cane, an umbrella, bowler hats or a pinstripe suit and eat caviar for breakfast. The sky is the limit in regards to how far you want to take your indulgence in the finer things. although many guys do this purely for their brand on social media. Nothing wrong looking smart casual to make a good impression, but no need to show off doing all that either. And the question is, how badly do you want to be perceived as high value when at the end of the day you just want to get on with it and live your life? So practically speaking, how does a man begin putting a conscious effort into his own sartorial journey? Well, he starts by investing in well-fitted clothing, whether it be buttoned-up shirts, chinos, and merino wool sweaters, long-sleeve polos, and cool suede jackets, laced-up dress shoes or suede derbies, and casual blazers. Cool, now you got the basic look down. But then you need more colors, so you start replicating some of the items, but in more subtle shades and variations. Not too many pastel colors, unless of course they are, linen shirts for the summer. You start following more sartorial rules and start paying more attention to the details, becoming more nitpicky on color coordination. You start worrying about accidentally damaging, scratching, or getting a stain on your clothing. Sometimes a haul comes out of nowhere and now you gotta, go to an alteration specialist or the dry cleaners. God forbid you have to go to the store and rebuy a garment that got ruined by someone spilling their drink on you. And then there's keeping the clothes fresh and clean. You gotta re-wax your barber jackets, kill all the moths nearby. You may start outgrowing your clothes by either eating too much or gaining too much muscle mass for your clothes. The latter is a good problem to have. General maintenance and care takes some knowledge as well as experience, which you develop over time. Another thing is that you'll probably and inevitably make purchasing mistakes. You overspend on something that in the end wasn't exactly worth it. For example, shoes that start feeling uncomfortable and end up scratching your heel for no reason other than to piss you off. You never really think about clothes as something you need to coddle and protect, but when you're going for longevity, that's the price you pay. It's pretty much an attachment to material possessions that you can't take with you when you die. But at the end of the day, it's like with anything in life. You can't get too attached to stuff, because that's all they are, kind of like rags, but of higher quality, of course. You'll find yourself wanting to upgrade in quality because the only way is up, and in a way it's like upgrading yourself. So as you progress, you may feel a yearning to feel a sense of completion, an urge to finally scratch that sartorial itch once and for all.
A wardrobe that was getting very respectable. I was close to being complete.
How many shirts, blazers, or jackets of different colors or materials do I really need in my wardrobe? Because at the end of the day, I have just accumulated a whole lot of stuff. Not gonna lie, I'm glad I did so. I mean, I feel like I finally have everything I need for each season. I think it may be complete. And then what? Did reaching this imaginary finish line actually make me happy? Do I need to find something else to fill that materialistic void? Perhaps more clothes, more suits, better suits. It does raise an interesting question, and that is, when does the sartorial journey actually end? And obviously, some essential garments do need replacing from time to time. You're gonna get carried away with buying what's new, overspending, trying things on, checking out a brand's website to see if they updated their collection for the season. And you're thinking, wow, I would look so good in this. And then of course, you buy it. But I also look good in this same garment, but in a different color. At a certain point, you know something would look good on you and improve your image, but does that mean that you absolutely have to have it in that moment? Well, you know what else would improve my image? Sydney Sweeney by my side. Does that mean I absolutely need that to be a reality? Well, I wouldn't mind actually. It's not like I can wait to buy it for a special occasion or when I can properly afford it. No, I gotta get it now. The point I'm trying to make is not to get too carried away with trying to chase and attain the perfect image of whatever fashionable archetype you're trying to emulate. Because you may start to lose track of who you are, not to mention probably end up broke in the process. So it's a constant loop of trying to satisfy this materialist urge that never seems to end. But sometimes I'd rather be at peace and just have the satisfaction of going into a clothes store and thinking, you know what, I don't think I need that. I mean, surely there's more to life than trying to be the best dressed dude in town or at the party. You know, the ultra refined gentleman, the top dog, the top G, the top motherfucker, whatever you want to call it. So let's say your wardrobe is now complete. Congratulations. Now the problem you have is that you have too many combinations to choose from. Now you start questioning whether you really need all of that stuff to begin with. And you actually start to consider selling everything and perhaps maybe becoming a minimalist. Because at the end of the day, you strive for comfort and convenience. These clothes are probably going to deteriorate in one way or another. And so will you, for that matter. Do you really need that many clothes anyway? Are you really going to worry about your sartorial presentation during those hard times? Probably not as much. I'm not saying you need to become a minimalist, as I think it's good to have the bare essentials, but just try to be aware when this whole process is starting to take its toll. You realize that you just become a bit of a consumer. Albeit a sophisticated and classy consumer.
Consumers?
Right. We are consumers. We are byproducts of a lifestyle obsession.
And of course, there are levels to the sartorial journey, because you may have achieved the style you want, but now you start thinking about upgrading, focusing on finer materials and improved tailoring, going more designer. Owning cashmere garments are the next level, shall we say. The true bad boy material of the fashion industry is highly respected and sought after due to its exceptional softness, warmth, and lightweight nature. Derived from the undercoat of cashmere goats, primarily found in Mongolia, China, and India. The fibers are incredibly fine yet insulating, making them, perfect for luxury garments. The rarity of high quality cashmere, combined with its labor-intensive production process, adds to its exclusivity and high price. Additionally, cashmere's durability and timeless appeal makes it a staple in high-end fashion. You start upgrading from cotton buttoned-up shirts to cashmere blended shirts. They're very breathable, light, not to mention comfortable. The kind of shirts that actually look like the ones presented in the advertisements. You'll look money, because the word cash is literally in the word cashmere. I mean, that's when you know you reach a higher level, when you're focusing more on, the materials rather than just how something looks on the outside. I had to try one of those cashmere sweaters from Luca Faloni. All garments are handcrafted in Italy by skilled artisans using premium natural materials. And you really feel the difference with it, but that does come with a higher price point. And so it's up to you whether you feel that you should pay £345 for a sweater rather than £24 for a similar looking sweater from Uniqlo. And I'm actually not knocking Uniqlo because they're actually really good for getting all the basics you need, especially when you're just starting out. And when you want to go a few steps above, you can go for Charles Tyrwhitt, Reiss, or John Henrik. Then of course you go into the brands with the more Italian names. The deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the higher the price point. And what about suits? That's a whole other area to get into eventually. So yeah, suits, for work for example. You'll most likely start off purchasing off the rack from a high street retailer. But then you felt that you kind of need to step up your game by getting your suits tailored. And you start going bespoke, creating the suit from scratch, getting your suits from Savile Row. So the love of suits are something you may come to experience at the higher end of the journey. It's the final destination in a sense. But generally speaking, I'd say, your first 3 suits should be a navy, charcoal, and a mid-grey. And perhaps after that, maybe charcoal striped or pinstripe suit that conveys a bit more authority. You could spend the rest of your life immersed in the world of fine tailoring and elegant suits. So maybe you're in finance, where there's a certain dress code to adhere to, in which a suit is essential. Perhaps there's a bit of an unspoken competition amongst your peers as to who has the nicest suits. Yeah, it is pretty shallow and pointless in the grand scheme of things, but I suppose it's just part of, that particular lifestyle. You could be flexing your suit until death. So at your funeral, you could potentially request to be dressed in your best suit in an open casket. Just to show off your drip one last time to the old bros attending your funeral. It's like even in death, you're still like, I still dress better than all of you losers. I may not be alive, but I'm still killing it. So temptations will always arise, especially when you're walking along the streets of the fashion district and you peek into the designer store windows. And you may experience something similar to the lust of the flesh. Only in this case, it's like the lust of the fabric. They become an object of desire in a sense. I mean, it's good for the brand's business, I guess, to get you hooked on wanting to look good. You really want it because you feel you need it, and that it's going to make you happy and somehow complete you. At least aesthetically, not exactly internally, however. And you get a high from showing off your nice clothes on social media, receiving likes and positive validation. However, this only lasts for maybe 2 minutes, give or take. Ideally, you just want to focus on the comfort and longevity and be done with it. You can't be swayed by clever marketing every time. So before, you may have got your elegant shoes from Clark's, then went on to more reputable brands like Joseph Cheney, Loke or Barker, and then one day you were like, nah, we're going for Church's, bruh. Crockett & Jones, the very best of British shoemaking. Highly respected due to his exceptional craftsmanship and high quality materials, and heritage. Founded in 1879 in Northampton, England, a historic hub for shoemaking. The brand is known for its Goodyear welted construction, which ensures durability and comfort. Each pair undergoes meticulous hand finishing and strict quality control, making them a favorite amongst discerning customers. Their timeless designs, committed to excellence and a blend of tradition with modern elegance, has solidified their reputation as one of the world's finest luxury footwear makers. I even went ahead to try on the 60th anniversary Goldfinger edition suede derbies known as the Highbury 2 in dark brown calf suede. Very lovely indeed. Inspired by what Sean Connery wore in the movie as James Bond in 1964. Outside my price range? Maybe just a tad. A mere £775. Was I tempted at all? Almost, but not quite. Because as it's a very popular design, I knew I could get something very similar at the fraction of the price. And so the fact that it was associated with the Bond brand didn't really get me this time, even though I really loved the marketing campaign behind it. So a good movie that actually showcases the sartorial journey pretty well is the film Limitless with Bradley Cooper, which I actually did discuss in another video quite a while back. The main character Eddie starts out as a struggling writer with ugly clothes, looking really rough, demonstrating his disheveled, unorganized, unhygienic lifestyle. Basically, a bit of a bum, to be honest. He takes the NZT pill, which suddenly gives him superhero-like abilities. He is now way more intellectually capable, as well as extremely motivated. He starts investing in himself with better clothes. Cool leather jacket, jeans, and a dark navy button-up shirt. Very slick and stylish colors. He starts upgrading his life on the whole, adapting to new environments, high-level people, taking on the stock market. Then he starts getting into, bespoke, tailored suits, pinstriped with a blue shirt, but without a tie just yet, just to keep himself, looking professional, yet somewhat more relaxed. But at the end of the film, he reaches his final form. Bit of a spoiler alert, but he goes into politics, running for office, or a mayor type position, something of that nature. His red tie symbolizes power and leadership, and the flag pin demonstrates a sense of national pride as well as political legitimacy. A very ambitious man indeed. So he gets a clean-cut haircut, decides to be clean-shaven, and he takes his girl to the highest-end restaurant, and so now he's made a full transformation. A good example of a man life-maxing and focusing on his self-improvement. So it's not like the clothes made him who he became, but they are a part of his progressive journey. As Eddie improved himself, so did his style. Now, I'm not saying that looking presentable and dressing well isn't important, but at the same time, I don't think you should make your clothes be the only thing that define your identity. Even though it may seem quite hypocritical coming from me, being a content creator who likes to dabble in the style niche. If you're in the fashion capitals of the UK, France, Italy, and Scandinavia, sure, dress to impress. But in some other different parts of the world, perhaps it's best to be a bit more subtle with it. If I went somewhere a bit more rural, a blue-collar town, perhaps somewhere in Texas that isn't necessarily a central city, then I may do better with something like a Carhartt jacket, as well as a pair of Timberland boots. Which I think I could pull off if I really wanted to, but it's definitely more associated with, workman-type gear. Sometimes it's good to pivot from your usual look and to try something that you wouldn't usually go for. So in this case, we're prioritizing functionality, durability, and streetwear appeal rather than elegance and supreme comfort. Originally designed as workwear for laborers, its rugged aesthetic, thick fabrics, and oversized fits have been embraced by skaters, hip-hop artists, and streetwear enthusiasts. Always thought it was more of a brand for someone in their 20s, but clearly Matthew McConaughey makes it work, so the hell do I know? It obviously has a lot of mainstream as well as celebrity appeal. So what about the clothes that you need for the really special occasions? The fancy velvet blazers, the tuxedos, and the tailored shirts with the bow tie. For the ball, the gala, a night at the opera, or an awards ceremony. Well, suppose you got asked the question, how many special occasions do I need to be ready for in my life? How often do I personally get invited to such events? Not that often, unless I happen to be working there as a bartender or something. So let's say those kinds of environments aren't particularly a regular occurrence for you. That's okay. It's all kind of fake anyway, and probably a bit pretentious. So you save up for that extravagant outfit, even maxed out your credit card to get it. How many times did you get to wear it? Most probably only once. Maybe twice in the past 5 years. So overall, if I don't see myself wearing something more than twice a year, then I may reconsider whether I should invest a lot of money into it. Sure, the garment may look awesome on you, but does the garment make you look good? What do I mean by this? Does it suit your personality? Does the jacket accentuate your features and attributes? rather than outshine you and essentially stealing the show. Sure, the girl might approach you first at the bar and compliment your jacket, but really it's just your jacket being complimented and not necessarily you. But that doesn't matter. In the end, it's whether the outfit makes you feel good. It's probably better to view your purchases as necessary investments rather than prized possessions that you think will fill some kind of void. So you may have a phase when you want to show off your designer labels, but it really depends on your character. Do you like to be the center of attention, with the Gucci and Versace, or do you prefer to be more subtle with the way you move? I personally prefer the latter. Look good, but not distracting. Fast fashion comes and goes. It may be bougie right now, but in a few years, maybe in a few months, it will go out of style and may become rather tacky. When immersing yourself in high-end fashion, you may feel inclined to emulate a more high-end lifestyle. It even comes down to what you eat, drink, as well as the music you listen to. Does it contribute to the type of relationships you pursue? Maybe a bit. So refinement is an attitude as well as a lifestyle. Hopefully you'll be acting more mature, as well as maybe even flirting with the idea of traditionalism as a viable life strategy. And then I take a moment to step back and think, wait, how important is all this consumerism to my life as a whole? Not a lot, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, it's nice, but then what? Nice doesn't give you philosophical clarity. I mean, you could be thinking, look, it's really not that deep, bro. And you're probably right. As a fashion content creator, you gotta stay in your lane. Could I talk about fashion forever, well into my 60s? Perhaps, but maybe not with the same level of enthusiasm or excitement. Because after a while, the clothes you wear just become a part of you. It's just not such a big deal now. At this point, being stylish should be, rather effortless. So in my case, the sartorial journey is a little bit of a phase, and not as much of a lifetime pursuit as I initially expected. I can look at my wardrobe I developed with pride and not feel a sense of, oh, this isn't complete now, is it? At least for now. You start finding other things to live for. So hopefully on my grave, it doesn't just say something like, always the best dressed man in the room. Again, forever flexing. On the whole, materialism and vanity is somewhat of an empty existence. As much as we love to indulge in it, making a good impression is important, but I do see the vanity aspect of it as well. When your purpose is literally just to be more attractive or to be the most attractive, essentially it's like, being a peacock.
Ten wafel jest wyjść w tym domu. Ej, cześć? Ej, on wygląda, to jest prowizoryczny wentylator. Dobra. Ej, ja kiedy dostaję uwagę? Ja kiedy ktoś dostaje? Kurde, zobacz co on robi. On jest
Yeah, he may look good, but can he fight? I mean, that's the real question. I mean, he may be a gentleman, but does he know when to not be so gentle? So all in all, it's about setup. Setting everything up so you can be well prepared to be the refined, well-dressed man when you're out in the world. The clothes can accentuate you, but they don't actually define you. Unless looking good or being good looking is literally your job, or something you believe defines you. It can be a tricky one sometimes. The sartorial journey is still a journey, just a bit of a superficial one. Because at the end of the day, all is vanity. And so with that being said, hopefully you found this video interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.